Well, by this time you must have become aware of the fact that stars and other cosmic bodies are very far away from us. We cannot go and touch them. We cannot bring them to our labs. Our only information from these bodies is through the radiation that we receive. And we can picture these objects in various regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can picture them in radio region, we can picture them in infrared, we can picture them in visual region, we can picture them in X-rays and so on. And the composite picture of all these pictures that emerges tells us a lot about these objects. But if you want to get information about the composition of these objects, then we must get their spectrum. Spectrum, as you know, is a series of lines. I think you must have done some experiment in your labs, and it's just a series of lines, spectral lines. And this is what gives us information. In this picture that is in front of you on your screen, a star is shown emitting light, and above this star is a cloud of gas. Gas particles are shown there, and the starlight has to pass through this, and this gives rise to what are known as absorption lines. We shall explain the origin of absorption lines in detail later. This one is the solar spectrum, shown in terms of the energy on one side and wavelength on the other. And I will also tell the students that they must remember that astrophysics is nothing but the application of simple principles of physics to stars and other cosmic bodies. And here also we are going to apply the principles that you have learned in your school days. You know, an atom consists of a nucleus and a large number of electrons orbiting the nucleus. And whenever an electron jumps from one of the orbits to a lower orbit, then a photon is emitted, as we shall show you in the animation that comes here. You see that an electron falls from energy level E2 to E1 and a photon is emitted. This photon has energy equal to the difference in the energies of level 2 and level 1. You can see that, and this gives rise to an emission line. On the other hand, we'll show you in the next animation that if an electron jumps from the level E1 to level E2 on absorption of a photon, you see a photon coming, being absorbed, and electron jumping from E1 to E2, this gives rise to an absorption line. It's a dark line, as you see in the illustration below this. So this is a simple process which you all know. Let us now see how the stellar spectra is obtained. You see, each element in the periodic table has a spectrum which is unique. No two elements would have the same spectrum. Here you see hydrogen spectrum as an example. We have Lyman lines when all the electrons jump from higher levels to the ground level. We have Balmer lines when electrons jump from all the levels to level 2 and so on. So this is unique for hydrogen. Here you see Balmer series. Each element has a characteristic spectrum, as I said, and you see here spectrum due to sodium, helium, and neon and mercury in addition to that of hydrogen. You can see that their lines are unique. No two lines you would find at the same wavelength. When a star emits light, as we showed you in the first slide, this light has to pass through the atmosphere of the star, and therefore the absorption lines are generated in the atmosphere of the star, and the absorption lines in the spectrum tell us about the composition of the atmosphere. So the information that we get is about the composition of the atmosphere, but since there are processes which tell us that there is interaction between the atmosphere and the rest of the star, we can say that this is also an indicator of the composition of the star itself. And now you see how we obtain a spectrum. This is what you are familiar with in your lab classes maybe. Here is a prism and light passes through a prism and then it gets separated into various colors, various lines, red and violet in this case. This is an important thing for you to understand. We have a hot light source. If the light comes directly to the spectroscope, then you see a continuous spectrum as shown here, because this is an incandescent light. On the other hand, if the light passes through a gas cloud, then the gas cloud absorbs certain lines and you see at the right a continuous spectrum with dark lines embedded on it. And if the light goes directly to the spectroscope in this case, then we see emission lines without going through the gas cloud. So we have a bright background and bright emission lines. This is called emission spectrum. And for the absorption spectrum, we have bright background and dark lines on this spectrum. The temperature of the gas cloud is slightly lower than that of the source. If it is not lower, then it will not produce the absorption lines. So it has to be lower. As an example, you see the solar spectrum. You see it's a bright, colorful background, and on that background you see important dark lines. This is called Fraunhofer spectrum. These days the stellar spectra is recorded on the chart papers as shown in this case. They are not obtained on films anymore. These are the tracings of the various lines. We have just seen that spectra of various stars consists of a background and dark lines on this background. Depending upon the kind of dark lines that we get on the bright background, the astronomers or astrophysicists classified stars in 7 major classes: O, B, A, F, G, K and M. All these major classes are again subdivided each into 10 subclasses from 0 to 9. For example, we can have a star B0 and we can have a star A9, we can have a star like the Sun as G2 and like that. These are the major spectral classes. Let us see the basis of this classification. You would see that the stars have different number of lines on their spectra. O stars, for example, have very few lines, and those belong to helium and hydrogen. B stars have slightly larger number, but as you come down, you have N stars which have a large number of lines and also molecular bands. So you can see that the complexity of the spectra keeps on increasing as we go from O, B, A, F, G, K to M. And this was the basis of classification proposed by Annie Cannon, that depending upon what kind of spectrum there is, she classified the star either as O or B or A or F, G, K and M. Now let us go back to this earlier slides. This shows you the roughly the temperature in each class. O stars, for example, have temperatures extending all the way from 25,000 to 50,000. Typical temperature is 40,000 K. And the prominent lines in this are given in the 4th column, ionized helium. And in addition, it also shows weak hydrogen lines. We shall see the reason a little later, but at the moment, let us understand what is there in these spectra. B class has ionized and neutral helium lines as prominent lines, and the other lines, for example hydrogen lines, are now slightly stronger than in O class. In class A, hydrogen lines become very strong and the ionized and the lines due to helium almost vanish, and instead we have lines due to ionized calcium. Weak lines, but we have them. Similarly in F, the hydrogen lines have become weak again, and the ionized calcium lines, though weak, have become stronger now. And in G class, this process is carried further. We have very strong ionized calcium lines. And in stars K and M, in addition to the ionized calcium lines, we also get the unionized calcium lines as well as molecular bands such as TiO in class M. So knowing these lines, we can understand whether a star belongs to class G or K or F or A. Let us first understand that whatever lines we see are indicative of the chemical composition of the star, because those lines belong to different elements. So when once we see the spectrum as we see in this slide, this spectrum gives us information about the composition of various stars. Now, there is a very interesting story. When this classification was first proposed, it was thought that this is due to the chemical composition of various stars. And you can also see the jumble. You see, you have a class O coming before A and B in that order. You see, earlier O was later. It was thought its chemical composition belongs to a class which is later than A and B. Anyway, let's not go into details of that. But the important thing is that the Indian astrophysicist Professor Meghnad Saha showed that this classification can be explained on the basis of the surface temperature of stars rather than on their chemical composition. Let me say a few words about Professor Saha. Meghnad Saha was professor of physics in Allahabad University. He came from a very humble background, but because of his hard work and intelligence, he was able to achieve great fame. Let me also add, M.N. Saha was also a revolutionary. There is a story that once the governor of Bengal came to visit his school, and he along with some other students walked out as a protest against the partition of Bengal into two Bengals at that time. Professor Saha proposed that the true significance of stellar spectra is that it tells us about the temperature of the star, the surface temperature of the star. Let us take once again that table. You see, the old stars have very high temperatures, 40,000 degrees. At that temperature, if you remember your physics, all elements are ionized, including helium. Helium is the most difficult to ionize. Including helium, they are mostly all ionized. So that the only thing that is left for us is ionized helium. And it is this, the lines due to this element, that we see in the spectra of O stars. That is why the spectra of O stars is very simple. It features just the lines due to ionized helium and a few lines due to hydrogen. Come to B. The temperature now has decreased substantially, and therefore the helium is no longer highly ionized. Neutral helium therefore also shows its lines in this class, and because of a lower temperature, the hydrogen spectrum lines also have become slightly stronger because whole of hydrogen has not been ionized. Come down. Let us jump a few steps. Come to G. G, this you find the surface temperature around 6,000 degrees. In this case 5,500 written here, but about 6,000 let us assume. In that case, even hydrogen cannot be excited, so we have very weak hydrogen lines. On the other hand, calcium can be ionized at this temperature, and therefore we see lines of calcium. And if you come to K, the lines of calcium have become stronger because at this temperature the lot of ionized calcium is found in stars. When we come to M, the temperature is so low that even the molecules cannot be separated into atoms. So therefore molecules exist there, such as TiO in this case, and they have their bands in the spectra of these stars. Now you see that it's a whole series coming from O to the later class, and the spectra becomes more and more complicated or complex as you go from O to M, because more and more elements are found which can emit their lines in the visual region. Here we see the contribution of Professor Saha. He said it is because of the temperature that we see certain lines in certain spectra. In this case, you see that the calcium singly ionized, calcium 2, as we denote this in astronomy, these lines would be seen in temperatures around say 6000 to about 10,000, 9,000 degrees, and that is precisely the stars that we see these lines. The unionized calcium, calcium 1 here, you can see these lines would appear only in very low surface temperature stars, very cool stars, in this case lower than 4000 degrees. In the next slide we will show you the same thing with helium. You can see that helium is totally ionized above a temperature of about 30,000 degrees. So you don't see helium singly ionized, but helium singly ionized lines you see from a temperature of about 20,000 to about 30,000 degrees. That is what happened in the O class. We showed you that in class O we see lines only of ionized helium. Neutral helium lines you see at a temperature of around 10,000 degrees. That is why you see them in class B and A. So this was the contribution of Meghnad Saha. Let me also tell you, Professor Saha was nominated for Nobel Prize twice. Unfortunately, he couldn't be awarded the Nobel Prize, but the work that he has done, the legacy that he has left for us in astrophysics is such that his name would always be famous for astronomers and astrophysicists. Another thing, let me, before I leave the subject of Professor Saha, Professor Saha was the one who realized very early that nuclear physics was very important to India, and therefore he advocated its inclusion in the courses of studies for various MSc classes in various universities. And in his name now we have Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics in Calcutta, where a lot of work is done on nuclear physics. As I said, Kenny classified these stars purely on the basis of their spectra. If the spectra is less complicated, it belongs to class O. If it has a few more lines, it belongs to class B. If it has more lines, class A, and it's very complex, then it goes to class M, and so on. So Kenny classified these stars simply on the basis of the complexity of the spectra that we see. Here you see a picture of Annie Kennan. And the contribution of Saha is this, that he realized that the classification that has been proposed by Annie Kennan is due to the surface temperature of the star. He said spectrum that a star has can be explained on the basis of the surface temperature of the star. This is his contribution, and so far, as I said earlier also, and so far as we know, there is no deviation from this simple principle. This is nothing but the thermodynamics, that the temperature of a star can be estimated if we compare its energy with one of these curves. We'll show you in the next slide how the solar spectrum is fitted to a certain curve and its temperature is estimated. In this case, the temperature is around 6000 degrees. Yellow is the blackbody curve and red is the actual spectrum, and you can see how close the two match. So by matching this, we can estimate the temperature of a star. Let us now talk of another very important tool for astrophysicists. This is HR diagram, or Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. This was discovered by two astrophysicists, Russell and Hertzsprung, and this is a very important tool for us. What is its importance? Let us see. If we plot, as shown here, if we plot some measure of luminosity, in this case absolute magnitude you see on the y-axis, and some measure of temperature, in this case you see the temperature directly. So if we plot these two parameters, then what we see is that the stars are divided into different groups. Here you have a group on the top right hand side. These are giants and supergiant stars, very large in size, supergiants, that's why they're called. And we have also a line running from the top left to bottom right. This is called the main sequence. Most of the stars you will find lie on this main sequence, on this line. At the bottom again, we show you another concentration of stars. These are white dwarf stars. The important thing is that these are white dwarfs, as you know, these are very small stars. That's why they are called dwarf stars. And surface temperatures around 10,000 degrees and so on. But the important thing is that the stars fall very neatly into various groups. Supergiants, giants, main sequence, and white dwarfs. They fall very neatly into these groups. And in between these groups, there are very few stars. Again, you see the same thing. We have supergiants at the top, then red giants, and then the main sequence, and then again at the bottom we have white dwarfs. So the point is, in this case also, let me also give you additional information about this diagram. This is a very useful diagram. On the left hand side, on the y-axis, we have absolute magnitude. We could also have luminosity. This is shown on the right. On the y-axis on the right, we have shown the luminosity in terms of the solar luminosity. At the bottom, we have temperature as in the earlier graphs. But at the top, we also have the spectral classification, which I have explained at length, that it depends on the temperature. So we can have any of these 4 parameters. We can have 2 parameters in this HR diagram. Usually, it's absolute magnitude and temperature. You see that if I choose a temperature of 6,000 degrees on the x-axis, then a star with this surface temperature could belong to main sequence, could belong to red giant branch, could also be a supergiant. So how do we tell? The classification that we have discussed above, O, B, A, F, G, K, M, does not explain all this. Because a star belonging to class G could be a supergiant, could be a red giant, could be a main sequence, or could be a dwarf. So we can never tell on the basis of the classification that we have discussed so far. Now, the question is, how do we really see whether a star is a main sequence star, or whether it's a red giant star, or whether it's a supergiant star belonging to a certain spectral class, say G. The way to do this is following. We see at the spectra of these stars once again. In the last one, we have the same class of star but belonging to the main sequence. You can see that there's a subtle change. Do you notice that? That there's a subtle change in the lines. The same line, for example, in the bottom spectrum is very bright. If you go to the next one, it has become narrower, and if you go to the last one, it is still narrower. This subtle difference in the same line tells us the story. It tells us whether a star belongs to a supergiant class or a giant class or the main sequence. A star belonging to a certain spectral class could be on the main sequence. It could be a giant star, it could be a supergiant star. And the way to tell is by observing the lines of metal atoms. In supergiants, the lines are slightly weaker, and in the main sequence they are slightly broader. And therefore, on the basis of this, we can have what is known as luminosity classification. Now you see that a star, for example, belonging to class GO can be a white dwarf if you draw a vertical line. It can be on the main sequence, it can be a giant, it can be a supergiant, and so on. Therefore, the stars which are supergiants, they are given classification 1A. This one is Roman 1A. Supergiants which are slightly less bright, they are given class supergiant 1B. And similarly, coming down, main sequence stars have been classified as class 5. So therefore, to give, say, let us take Sun as an example. Sun belongs to class G2, and to say that it is on the main sequence, we say it is G25. It indicates that it has a temperature of around 6,000 degrees and it's a main sequence star when we say G25. This gives us complete information If I say G25, it gives me complete information. If I say G21, it gives me complete information that the star has such temperature and it also belongs to a supergiant class. Let us see the HR diagram and then I'll explain. HR diagram is so important to us that some astronomers call it the horoscope of stars. In fact, this is the kind of information that you can get. You can get the information about size, about luminosity, about mass, about spectral type, about absolute magnitude, and about the age of a star if we know its place on the HR diagram. Let me explain each of these. You can see that if we go general, if we go to the right, then the temperature decreases and the size increases. If we go to the top, generally the mass increases, luminosity increases, right? And again, since there are groups of stars, a star falling in this group at the left bottom is a white dwarf. A star falling in the group at the top right is a supergiant. So HR diagram gives us all this information about the size, about the mass, about its temperature, and also its age. We'll show you how the age is indicated by the HR diagram. You would see that how a star changes its place from birth to death on the HR diagram. It appears as a gas cloud and then it becomes a protostar, and then it becomes a star like the sun. It's a yellow star, you can see it's like the sun. Then the sun will, in time, when it will become very large, it will become a giant star, and then it will go through several stages and it will end up as a white dwarf star. You'll see. Yes, this is a planetary nebula, and then this has become a white dwarf. The important thing is, you can see with age the star is changing its location on the main sequence from birth to death, and therefore we can the science is more precise. In fact, we can tell with great precision what the age of star is if we know where on the HR diagram it is located.